Hey guys, Bumps the Night. I'm back with another Goosebumps The Vanishing review. Today we're talking about episode number 5, The Boy Who Cried Monster, because it's a take on The Girl Who Cried Monster, kinda. Once again, this series does something where they take a book and they loosely borrow one or two traits from it. This more so being the overall plot and the title from the book, The Girl Who Cried Monster. If you haven't read that book, essentially, long story short, Lucy Dark has a habit of fibbing and telling lies, or essentially telling stories that she saw monsters. Well, to translate to this episode, this is more or less CJ's episode. Now, mind you, each episode has kind of followed a different character, or at least a couple characters, but more so focused on one of the group each episode. Now, the haunted car was Alex's, Monster Blood was Cece's, The Boy Who Cried Monsters is CJ's. CJ is a delivery driver, and he is delivering dumplings to this creepy house. Now, the music, as always, is great in taste. I think out of all the characters, CJ's music choices were the coolest, personally, but that's just a personal preference. So CJ pulls up to this creepy old house. He goes to make the delivery. The old lady asks him to come in. Turns out he's just telling a fib. He goes in, and he creeps towards her, and they set up that whole, quiet atmosphere for, it's going to be a jump scare. And she turns around, and she's a zombie. But not actually. The truth of the story is he was scaring his sister with a lie. His mom didn't buy it. What happened was he either ate the food, which he's really bad at doing, or he left the food and didn't knock like you're supposed to as a food delivery person, and the person claims they never got it, meaning that the family had to refund the person. So CJ, by being negligent, is costing his mom's business money, which is not great. CJ has dreams. He doesn't want to be a delivery boy anymore. He wants to do more. He wants to be in management. He has all these ideas, all these new, fresh ideas for that next generation. Kombucha this, organic that, mushroom coffee this, blah, blah, blah. Turn it into a burrito, turn it into a smoothie. Just a lot of, a lot of fresh, fun ideas, but not all will translate well into the food business, if you ask me. It cuts back to Dr. Brewer. Dr. Brewer's sick now. It does flash back prior to him being sick, and it shows him wandering around the fort, which in this episode we're going to learn is actually called Camp Nightmare, which, okay, that's 5 episodes in, and now we're going to start calling it that? Okay. But he's exploring around, just like at the last episode. Devin, Frankie, and Cece see him walking out of the fort in a hazmat suit. Very Stranger Things-esque vibe. Well, essentially, he's exploring and he reaches down into a panel and he just happens to nick a tiny little hole in his hazmat suit. And when he opens up the same hole that, seems to be at the center of the room where we keep alluding back to, it's where the smoke or slime or whatever the hell this stuff is, this inorganic substance keeps leaking out. Well, it gets him. It doesn't show it automatically, but it gets him. It's like a slow, tiny infection. Which, that's something else. I don't really understand what they were thinking with this, because every person this shit affects differently. Some it's automatic, some it melts them, some it makes them have lost time episodes. Devin got somewhat exposed to it, and he just kind of was tripping out and having a miniature version of dementia. It gets into Cece's kombucha, and she throws up this abomination of monster blood. It gets into Troy after it fuses with a plant and turns him into the thing from beyond the thing, which, Plant Man, whatever. It affects everyone differently, and I feel like it's just poor writing in this case, and this might be because you have too many hands in the cookie jar, but they should have streamlined what this is. I mean, we're going to find out what it is soon, but it's so ambiguous and over and everywhere. It's just what the hell are you doing? Not to my taste. I'm not enjoying that factor of it. But he's sick, and when he sneezes, his tissue's black, meaning, oh no, the goo has got him. The same goo that's been resonating every issue because it's from the fort. So anyway, he orders himself some chicken soup. CJ runs it over. CJ gets scared by him because he's acting real weird. He sneezes, his eye pops out. CJ sees it, has a real oh fuck moment, runs away. Can't blame him. Unfortunately, this is tying back to the Girl Who Cried Monsters. CJ tells so many bullshit stories. The one time it happens to be true, no one buys it. His mom goes with him to investigate. Now Dr. Brewer looks fine, plays it off, essentially gaslights the mom, completely rolls CJ. This costs CJ his moped, his job, and his phone. Now we run it back. Meanwhile, this is happening. Devin, Frankie, and Cece are kind of all piled up still after the Monster Blood episode. They are with Frankie at work when Frankie finds out from Troy's dad that he's getting out of the hospital, and that's going to kind of separate the group. While this is also happening, we see that Alex's mom, who was Maddie's girlfriend back in the 90s, understands something is happening. She knows that this isn't all just bullshit. She essentially tells Alex that, I do believe something's going on. I don't want you involved with it. Please stay away for your own safety. I'm going to figure this out, but I don't want you involved. Then she goes and finds this perfect hidden little area where she hid away a tape from the night of the vanishing 30-something years ago. So everything's kind of starting to full circle turn. Frankie and Devin have a small little spat. Mind you, it's a will they, won't they thing. It's more or less a love triangle between Frankie, Devin, and Troy. Devin gets a little jealous because Frankie agrees to be there for when Troy gets out of the hospital because obviously they still care about each other, and that just puts a little bit of a wedge between them. While this is also happening, they're trying to get info from Alex because Alex was trying to tell people that Troy's car was alive and no one seemed to really believe it. So now they're all, like I said, they're putting it all together. It's all kind of coming together.
Oh yeah, it's all coming together.
As Crunk would say. So now Cece is over here trying to talk to Alex about what happened. Alex is brushing off, like, no, I don't want to deal with it. They have this weird romantic tension, which, why? There's no need. Why? But you do it anyway. So Alex brushes them off. The group can never seem to, like, put everyone together. There's always one or two that, like, head off or split off. So while this is happening, Dr. Brewer phones Gwen's, which is CJ's parents' family's restaurant, and says, hey, I'm sorry I got you fired. If you come back, I'll explain everything, and I will explain it to your mom as well. So CJ, being desperate and wants, his life back, decides to go. There's another issue I have here. So we've had multiple characters affected by this goo. Troy, Dr. Brewer, Devin, Cece. Why is it acting different with everybody? So if this whole thing's goal was to spread, because that's what's about to happen, it keeps talking about wanting to infect CJ, and then he'll know everything that Dr. Brewer knows. Why is it that this is the first inkling we're really seeing of it? Now, granted, the plant pulled Devin into the sewer and, like, spritzed him and stuff. But after he got hit with that, don't you think he'd be acting the same way? He didn't vomit up the goo. Or after Troy became Plant Man / Car. Like, I just feel like they didn't really know where they were going. They're just like, hey, we know this is going to happen, but not really sure. Like, it feels like a very last-minute spur of the moment. And I feel like they were just digging at this point, which, if you're going to do horror, do not yes and it. That's so fucking lazy. So CJ shows up. Dr. Brewer's acting like split personality. It's Dr. Brewer and the goo that's inside him, essentially, fighting for control. The goo takes over. It takes CJ down to the basement. We have some gnarly effects where he vomits black goo into a cup, and he's like, I'm going to feed you this, and then, I can let you go, and you're going to know everything. And it's like, he's just going through split personalities. Like, I should let you go, but I won't. I need to let you go, but I can't. So CJ's, like, fighting for his life in that chair. Then the cop shows up, which is Alex's mom. She has the VHS. We get that little funny joke from the trailer. You don't have any kids in your basement, do you? And then he's like, no. Then I can't tell if this was the goo or this was him, but essentially he has a rage moment where when she reveals she took a tape from 30 years ago, he gets all pissed off and he's like, you've lied to me. And he insults her and kicks her out of his house. Doesn't let her see what's on the tape, just takes it and get out of here. So at this point in the story, Devin has broken off. He's all butthurt because Frankie's going to see Troy. And then he is singled out by this girl sitting on a bench. And she is flirtatious with him. And it's just suspicious. And her name's Hannah. In Goosebumps, where have we heard that name before? Oh yeah, book number 10, The Ghost Next Door. So Hannah has taken an interest in Devin, and she knows about the fort and can tell he's been there, which, red flags. That's because Hannah was there 30 years ago. So Hannah is flirting with Devin, and it's kind of like getting like this. They're using these effects where essentially he's like in a trance. That's what they're trying to imply. And Hannah's like, we should go to the fort, which she also reveals it's called Camp Nightmare. Why was that not, like, prefaced this earlier? Like, why was that not given out earlier? Why was that not explained in the first episode, the second episode? Hey, I hear your uncle disappeared at Camp Nightmare. Hey, I dare you to go down to Camp Nightmare. Why now? It just, again, feels lazy. It feels lazy. There were so many other places they could have inserted that. Why here? And if it was a name that died off in the 90s because Hannah's a ghost from the 90s, Anthony and the cops should know. Dr. Brewer and Alex's mom should have already called it that. Like, it just feels like something, they're like, oh shit, we gotta do the Goosebumps reference. There. Put it there. That's what it felt like. It felt lazy. So, Devin gets a phone call, and they're like, it's Frankie, and Frankie's like, I need you to come to your house and let me in the basement. My just procedures that. They don't know that, but they think that the answers, what's going on, are in the basement. So the group's kind of rounding again to find an answer. Devin's really conflicted. Hannah was very like, hey, don't answer that phone, and just like, no, I need you now. Like, it's suspicious as hell. Obviously, they're building it up for a reason. At this point, Devin makes a decision, and Hannah's gone. Flash, like a ghost. And then they all round on the house. We see CJ escape. He essentially musters up the strength to break the chair and get away. When Dr. Brewer heads down into the basement after fighting with Alex's mom, that's when CJ kind of like knocks him and runs. Dr. Brewer starts to pull him back. He's like, oh, I got you now. And that's when the main group rushes into the basement, and they hit Dr. Brewer like in the neck, and his head flies off. And everyone's like, oh shit, oh my god. And then Dr. Brewer's still alive. He's sitting there like black goo out of his neck, and he's just like, oh, that's not good, but I have plans for all of you. And his kids see this too. He tells pretty much everybody's there but Alex that he has plans for all of them and that they're coming. So, once again, it seems like the plot's progressing with the black goo, but we're like 5 episodes in. Seems like that should have happened, I don't know, episode 1 or 2. So at that point, they all go back upstairs, and they're kind of trying to figure stuff out. They know that there's an inkling of their father in that, but they don't know what. They can't trust it. So they find the VHS tape, make a jab at anybody my age, essentially, who knew what a VHS was. Ouch. And then decide they're going to go to the retirement home where their grandma's at to watch the VHS tape. So CJ, Frankie, Troy, Devin, and Cece are all heading out. They meet up with Alex because Frankie texts Alex, and oh my gosh, the entire Scooby Gang's together. Except, just kidding, Devin gets a weird vibe and is like, I'm going to go talk to Hannah. She knows something. They can't convince him to stick around, so once again he breaks off, and now we're down to 5 out of 6. The rest of them get on the train and decide to head off towards the retirement home, and then we have the doctor lady from Monster Blood, the one that was a fake doctor in the ICU, walk down the stairs and be like, oh, look who it is. And he's like, oh, what are you doing here? And she's like, you couldn't just stay away from the fort, where all this shit's happening. And she picks up Dr. Brewer's head, bags it, and leaves. And yeah, so that's kind of where we're at with this series. A lot of stuff happened here. A lot of, the momentum we needed to get the series rolling towards its climax began in this episode. I'm not a huge fan of the whole, now all of a sudden the black goo is sentient, wants to do things. I mean, let's play devil's advocate here. If that's the case, why didn't it do it back then? Why didn't it take over those kids? If it wants to spread, standard alien bullshit where it's like divide and conquer, hive mind, why didn't it take over the kids in the 90s? Why did it milk them? Why didn't it take over the kids now when it made it back? When Devin accidentally opened it up from the power surge because Troy cut the breaker, why didn't it get to Devin and he start trying to infect his friends? When it got into Cece, she literally drank it. Why didn't it work then? When it literally became, it had Troy, made him into a monster. Troy had enough strength. He was kicking doors down. He was breaking shit. He could have easily infected everybody. So if the whole goal was to spread, if that's what the body squeezer's goal was, then why didn't they? And again, the Camp Nightmare thing just really, 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 really irks me. Because we've had so many inklings or chances to spit it out, and we're now just calling it that 5 episodes in because, gotta hit the book count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's the one. We'll get more details as we go, but it's just, like I said, this started out as a very interesting series, and for me, it's just every single episode is a jump downstairs. We're going down and lower in tiers, and I'm scared where we're going to end up on the floor, because there's just, we don't know what we want to do, and it's very apparent. So, once again, and this is just a bitching point, this is just my opinion, and I'm just bitching at this point to bitch, but if you want to write a story like this, why even drag Goosebumps into it? You could cut pieces out and make it its own thing. You could literally just make it a new age anthology for Gen Z or Gen Alpha. You don't have to drag a 30-year-old title in, slap it on there, and hope that nostalgia bait's going to reel in those Gen 1ers or those OG Goosebumps fans. I don't know. I'm going to say it. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I don't like Rob Letterman's hands on Goosebumps. I wish somebody would pry them from his greasy little fingers because he's just doing it injustice after injustice. If you thought the movies were rough, this is a whole other issue. Dude, you're like We want Pokemon and you're giving us Digimon. Yeah, it works. Sure, it's okay, but it's not what we asked for. Your Walmart brand bullshit is not necessary. At this point, if you like horror, if you like teen romance so much, why aren't you doing Fear Street? There's an entire plethora of Fear Street books that you could write on. Or better yet, if you want to take a loose-base concept of a 90s-esque book, do Ghost of Fear Street. If you're going to shit on a Stein title, shit on a lesser one at that. I don't know. Personally, I just think somebody who's a fan of the series should be in charge of the series, or at least be consulted. Or at this point, bring R.L. Stein on, because this shit just... It's like chicken ghostwriters all day, baby. That's exactly what this is. But yeah, that's my frustrated gripe with the 5th episode out of 8 in the series. Look forward to my review of the next one. If you're enjoying my content, make sure you click the buttons, like, subscribe, share, comment. Let me know what you thought about this episode down below. Am I being too harsh? Am I just being, a unk, as they call me, or an old head? Maybe I am. But, game recognizes game, and I'm not seeing shit out there. So... With that being said, thanks for watching, I appreciate your viewership, and I'll scare you in the next one.